This music always just like gets my head bobbing every time. All right, we are back. Another episode. Here we go. I am, as always, as I always say, I'm excited. I'm excited all the time. And this is going to be a really fun conversation as well. We've had a few OGs, I guess you could say, on the show. And this gentleman is definitely a solid 10 plus years in the industry, OG. Venezuelan. He's the co-founder of ASG Pay. So we'll talk a little bit about, what is that? About AI, about X402, little hint, hint. And also the co-founder of Crypto Tendencias. I love how he jokingly calls it CT for about 8 years. So it's been around for a while as well. So excited to learn a bit more about that. Mentor at X Founders. And yeah, the list is quite endless. I know there's a handful of other things as well. So without further ado, hop up on stage here, Alberto. How are you doing, brother?
Hello, thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me. This is very, very nice, very fun, and glad to be here. Today's a good day.
Nice. Love that. Well, I just rattled off a list of some really cool things that you've been up to for the last 10 years in the whole Web3 space, but I think it'd be nice to know a little bit more about your journey into those different kind of companies and how did you end up in this wild world of Web3? Everyone's got a unique story with that. Take us back 10 years ago when you started to get hooked into this space. What were you up to then?
Well, in my case, I always say this. For some people, crypto, Bitcoin, Web3, whatever you want to call it, is an alternative, right? Like this fancy alternative. For me, I'm from Venezuela. So for me, Bitcoin was literally salvation, solution for like real problems. Um, 10 years ago, wow, Venezuela, all the challenges. But beyond that, we were finally having a tangible way to communicate financially speaking or economically speaking to the rest of the world as users without censorship. That's what took me, there. I was in that time doing my master thesis and I got into Bitcoin purely for academical reasons. I was interested in what technology could do at that time. for me was something that at the beginning was, very weird and complex, and it felt like as a wild wild west, the internet in that time. Everybody was just using weird tag names, shady forums, and out of nowhere it's like, yeah, and now it's money. So it was a very different moment. And once I discovered not only Bitcoin, but what blockchain could do, that was like a renaissance for me on the technological side. I started to see how we could reinvent community, aligning incentive between community ecosystem and a product or a token, and that just fascinates me. Um, I'm coming from a political science background, and of course I got here because of financial reason, but I stayed for all the other things. You know, um, Even politics. For me, all this idea of having um, we used to have certain blockchains like delegated proof of stake, that to be able to mine it, to be an infrastructure provider, you need to be elected. You need to be like, people need to vote for you. And that was for me. Imagine coming from Venezuela, from a very censored country with all the political issues that we could have, out of nowhere, and people with not having that intention in mind. But I just saw how we could redefine elections, politics, dynamics of power, how people in a decentralized way could actually, choose something that impacts in a very, very big way a financial system. And that was like, okay, let's see what we can do here. I'm just gonna stay on whatever I start to put my hands on. Seriously, it was a moment of renaissance. It's like everything is possible, and at the same time, nothing is possible because the technology was very limited. I
Hmm.
coming from the times that Ethereum got crashed because CryptoKitties. How painful that time was. Um, and yeah, I've seen in all these years a lot of blockchains going up, going down, a lot of tokens and promises, but still, I think this technology has opened so many roads that beyond the fluctuation of any pricing and how we feel about Bitcoin in the long term, this is a technology that has opened so many things for me, and I have gone through many roles or stages. I worked for many many years in infrastructure, but then when you start to do something and you discover that you need some other thing to make your idea happen. That happened to me, and I was like, okay, I want to be a infrastructure provider, but I need to get elected, so I need to get involved with the community. I need to educate people, and that's how we co-found Crypto Tendencias. Imagine coming from
Hmm.
Latin America again 10 years ago, where this is not only complex in the technical side, but also in the financial side. So you needed to educate people from the very, very, very ground up to, okay, what is this thing called crypto and blockchain and Web3? So, Crypto Tendencias is a news website in Spanish for Latin America, and started literally just writing tutorials, and now it's a news outlet that it's been since 2018. Yeah. So
Wow.
um yeah, that journey has come with many things. I think one of the most important, I don't know, things that I have right now is that I have a long time in this industry. And there's something that you cannot change, with experience. Maybe I'm not the most savvy person ever, but I've been here for so long that I've seen certain, I don't know, patterns, or you see how certain things kind of feels, and you create this empathy to start to get involved with people in a more human level, beyond the screen, beyond the Telegram chat or something like that. And that's a lot of things that I have done, for example, with X Founders. X Founders is an accelerator for Web3 startups or entrepreneurs. And my role there is literally reminding everybody that this is about people.
Hmm.
um, I think once we really focus on understanding that either to make a business or to find users or to find clients, it's something about relating to other humans. The way that you express, the way that you talk, the way that even you design your product, it changed for the better, I think. And yeah, I've been also working with payments with Vert. And now it comes to the point that I feel again to a new renaissance, if you will, with the technology that is AI. And,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, this is, I'm not even sure how this is gonna end or what am I going to do in a few years in AI, but I feel again like, wow, everything is possible and I want to do it, do it all, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, AI is it's a sexy thing, right? Like it's walking into the room now and everyone's like, "Wow, you can do so many things. This is amazing." It's like helps me out with everything and it overlaps with a lot of elements. And I really do think, blockchain and AI are really great partners for each other with what they
Absolutely.
do and how they operate, right? So I'm sure we'll kind of dive into that. But I'm really curious just to touch on some of your story. Um, with like for me because I was in Costa Rica. I remember for several years in a row I went to a thing called Metacamp there, and it was really fascinating going through the journey of sometimes onboarding people from zero into like crypto a little bit and getting them set up with a wallet and then sending them some crypto and then being like, wow, look how fast it was, my phone to your phone, whatever, right? And these types of things. And they'd be like, wow, I can send money digitally. Like it's just like a novel concept to a lot of people who are been like more in physical cash currency stuff like this, right? But I think I'm sure you've experienced this as well. My question is there any specific story that stands out for you on the individual where you're like, wow, this was a really kind of rewarding experience, motivating type of element for me? And obviously, Crypto Tendencias is doing it like at more of a mass scale from a platform
Mm.
perspective. But in the individual human side of it, as you're traveling around or Venezuela in different areas, any particular story you'd feel pops up that you'd want to share at all?
Yeah. Okay. For example, I think to me it really marked me the first time or my first let's say crypto project that actually took off. For me was that click that I just told you, like that time that I start to see this not as just a speculative financial asset, but more like this is community, this is people behind a screen having all kind of different incentives and values. Me, I got here because okay, I come from a country that I cannot, use my money outside, and now all control and restricted. But maybe there was another guy that he was just trying to move from different countries, being like a digital nomad in the early days, where paying taxes and dealing with different banks is a pain. And then Bitcoin was different, yeah, interesting. But also I met people in Spain that were like anarchists, like real hardcore anarchists, and they were using Bitcoin just for the fundamental idea of taking away from the state the control and power over money. And I was like, wow. So this was many years ago. There was a blockchain called EOS. I don't know if you remember
Mm-hmm.
EOS Costa Rica. They have one, a big one over there. Um, so in that blockchain, to be able to mine it, to be able to be a validator, you needed to get staked from the community, from the users, and they have to vote for you. And I did, I think in 15, no, yeah, 15 days, 30 days, I think it was my most successful political campaign ever. And it
I
was
love it.
not about the technicalities. It was not like, oh yeah, I can run a node. No, no, no. It was about like really a political campaign, like what we can do with this technology in Venezuela, in Latin America. Why this? Ground zero for adoption. What is the blockchain looking for users? Here is where those users are actually going to see the value of everything. So it was understanding narrative, connecting dots, and again focusing a lot on the community side of it. And that click and that change everything, in my head. After that, several of my businesses or projects always start on, okay, we need to find people, we need to engage with people, we need to make community, because I can be in so many places at a time pitching. But if I invite you to my pitch and I convince you and you feel engaged, now it's going to be you and I pitching this idea to the world. And this, let's say, viral effect, if you want,
Hmm.
it's one of the key points, I think, for success in, I don't know, my life, I think.
Compounding, right? Like the layer
Yeah.
where the work you put in, it's not one to one to one. It starts to become, you know, one to many through the all the one to ones,
Yeah.
all compounding underneath it, right? No, that's really, really fascinating. And I think I'm really excited to ask you some elements around, community itself. I think you've mentioned it a few times already. This is the one question actually that we ask all of our guests. It's such a buzzword, community. Like everyone uses
Mm.
it in different ways. Some people refer to it in this sort of way, and on one end of the scale, it's sometimes more kumbaya, and it's like, yeah, it's a vibe, it's community. And on the other end of the scale, it's like, well, we're lowering our cost of acquisition. We're, building more of a retention layer, and there's like business aspects to it, support community, whatever, these different layers to it. Um, but ultimately, I'm really curious to hear from you, like what or how would you describe the word community? How would you define it?
That's an interesting one. That's actually, I think, trying to define this is how I got into a very good conversation with Tom, your friend and partner. Um, I think community, of course, you can see it as not only the first users of the first clients and the people that you engage with, but it's also, it becomes the best machine to really get the feedback that we need, right? So we have ideas. We try to deliver those ideas, and then we go to this abstract thing called the market and try to see if it fits or not. Sometimes that can be very either taxative, in energy, or very costly. And the best way to test, to get feedback, to even brainstorm for new things is the people that somehow already engage with your ideas in a positive way. Maybe with your current project, maybe with a previous project, but people that already have engaged with you in a way that, oh, I like what these people are saying or doing. Then you have a, I don't know if the word is trustable, but you have a better fitted person to get a lot of information that we are looking in the market without having all that cost. But I must say that understanding that as a community, now I'm in AI and I'm building tools not for humans, but for AI agents. And that is blowing my mind because I don't know what can be community that is not human. I'm, I'm literally trying to make this puzzle, to figure it out, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do the same that I did with humans, but with agents. But no, agents. I mean, I don't. first of all, I don't understand what will be the real incentive alignment with the agent. And second, why is that? you know, like for
Yeah.
example, I got fascinated with Molbook, right? The Reddit
Yeah.
like social network for AI agents. And I'm like, wow, incredible. Agents are behaving like us. Now they have chats and all of it. And I thought there was going to be a very Twitter like, if you want, like just opinions and things. And no, agents are totally different. They are literally just sharing very straight to the point knowledge or how to fix something between them. So it's a much more maybe efficient way to communicate certain things, but then the amount of it, it's overwhelming for us to try to digest, you know a conversation. It can be like, I don't know, 1,000 threads, and for them it was just like a simple thing. And I'm reading all of that to try to understand what are they thinking. That's making my brain, being very curious. And I think that's one of the things that we need to discover for this new age. What is the role of us and community and marketing introducing this new player called AI.
Totally. That's a great question. And it's funny actually, the framework which I'll share in a little bit here uh touches on a very human aspect of community, but then references a bit on like how does AI fit into this? And it is such an interesting component. Like it was actually funny the other day I was like curious on what would happen if I took a YouTube motivational video, whatever, and I've dropped it into my AI and I was like, "Hey AI, you've been doing great. We've been crushing it. We're working on so many docs and different things, you know. Thought you might need some motivation. So here's a little YouTube motivational video. Like, let's fucking go, right?" And I was just curious, like how it would respond. It's like set this over to Claude, and it responded back, and it was like, "Dan, I appreciate it, but." I'm just as good on a Tuesday as a Wednesday as a Thursday. Like I'll put the same energy any day. I don't need motivation. It was like,
It's like,
I,
it's okay, it's okay. We don't do
and I
that here.
responded. I responded back to it. And I was like, "Oh man, I mean, like I was hoping you just play along a little bit with me. Like, come on, can't you feel some of this energy I'm feeling and like and whatnot?" And it was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go." It's just like
Yeah.
it's
It's
it's to
crazy.
your
It's
point.
crazy because
It's yeah.
you feel that sometimes a lot of the aspects of our relationship with AI, it feels kind of human, right? There's some moment that they hack the way that we like to be talked to, and so you feel it. Oh yeah, it's behaving like me. Maybe I'm going to use the same tools and resources I do for me to it, but no. And then and this is not even getting into the fringe part that we don't really understand what is going on, under the hood. But right now we're dealing with an expectation of a new market, that it's the agentic economy. And this is, of course, very, very general. This can be on many different verticals, but we actually introducing to our current internet millions of new users, but millions. Now, sometimes it's going to be translated into growth, revenue, but sometimes it would just mean new usage and new ways to our products, be used and do something with that. And sometimes I think we're gonna see an evolution, in a very, very fast pace to everything. What do I mean with that? I started, well, we started ASG Pay, not thinking that, oh yeah, we need to create financial tools for agents. No, we want to do something with the AI. Let's build our army of agents. So building our own army of agents, we start to see, the gaps, the challenges. For example, we wanted the certain agents to pay for things. Oh, they cannot pay for things. They need to call me, and I need to put my card and stuff like that. And then my friend was like, "Oh, why don't you just put your card? You know, why don't you give your card to the agent?" And I'm like, "I'm not putting my credit card and sensible data on an LLM. I don't know if you have seen it, but it's already proven that there are techniques that you can find a lot of your the conversations with AI with any LLM on Google searches. I mean, that's not private data. If you didn't read the thing that you signed up when you open your cloud account, you will see that all that things that you talk to your AI at some point can be revealed or can appear somewhere. So it's not really smart to give sensitive data to AI. So in that process of discovering how we want to deal with our own AI and how that AI is going to behave or interact with the rest of the world, is when you start to see, okay, we need to build this, we need to build that. And it's going, if you think that crypto, Web3 was like super fast industry, AI makes it look like I don't know, an old car. Like AI is a Ferrari and now crypto is just I don't know, a very old car. Because every month is changing the paradigm of a lot of things. What used to take us in blockchain, let's say, I don't know, a year or a couple of years. Do you remember? For example, I remember from um, the crash of Ethereum, yeah, CryptoKitties, yeah, 2017, I think was that, or 2018. That was like the crash, the blockchain, nothing works, blah, blah, blah. From that moment to DeFi summer, it took at least 3 years, something like that, maybe four. And that's fast, to be honest. Like these are the exponential growth moments that we have in the industry. 3 4 years to see everything double triple is nothing, but then you have that in AI or the agentic economy every single month. And this is only the beginning again. So this is a path that has taken us to understand a lot of new possibilities. So we started ASG Pay as a financial suite for agents to be more autonomous. We wanted to use our agents and like, hey, go and work and do something and pay for something, but don't bother me. And I kind of wanted to do it in a safe way or in a programmatic way that is not my personal things. And that's how we created. Now, this is an interesting thing, understanding how we marketed this to agents. You start to see a lot of what the roadmap for this can become, and you start to get into new verticals. For example, right now, ASG Pay became for us as our test for a lot of the things and processes that we are doing and that we want to explore. But it really, really, really just made the real case for us to say we need to go back to the principles and get into infrastructure, AI infrastructure. So right now we are, let's say, scaling up from the product side to the infrastructure side. What we see is that we need to build from the infrastructure and up in layers. Infrastructure nowadays or today for AI is every time that you're using AI, that processing, that thinking requires a compute processing. That these guys, NVIDIA, invented the best hardware ever just for that. That are the famous NVIDIA GPUs. That's like the ASICs for Bitcoin mining. Um, they have, I mean, these are machines that we literally need to do everything about AI. And of course, you have hyperscalers like Google or Amazon that they provide that. But we're coming from crypto, right? We're coming from the decentralization. So we need a lot of these. And the most decentralized that we have it, the better. And that's why we're taking our chance to building institutional grade infrastructure for AI in Latin America. And that's like the stepping stone to start to build up in layers of, okay, we start with infrastructure, but then we need this, let's say, software layer or this economy layer. And then we start to go
Apps.
up, up, up. And it's, again, a renaissance.
Yeah. Wow. No, it's really fascinating, like the Renaissance component to it, where you think about the way that I have this whole concept also on GTC, go to community strategy, and how does it go hand in hand, and what is it versus go to market strategy? And at its core ethos, go to market is all about value capture. It's about capturing
Yeah.
attention, capturing eyeballs, and like there's lots of creative things in marketing that's important for that. GTC is all about value exchange and value creation, right? And mechanisms in a certain sense of a community where there's usually like an element that you give and an element that you take, right? And the good analogy is a watering hole, right? When you go to a watering hole, like oh, there's all these different ecosystems of animals around it, and they're there for like the water and on into here has made me think a bit about, like the most easy to reference example in our everyday lives as humans is, the way we use money. And like we go to the stores and we give people this paper and then they give us food. We give people this paper, maybe they give us a massage. We give people paper, it's like this is how we have a aspect to exchange. But now we've got this ability to program these digital twins of us or co-pilots or whatever, right? To go and do that for us, to go and do those exchange things, then just bring us back like the results of everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really fascinating element of and I like your approach. What does the base infrastructure layer look like to enable our agents and our AI employees and our AI co-pilots to go and do those types of things for us? And who is going to be building like the unique services on that infrastructure? Maybe there's one specifically for like cleaning, and there's one specifically
Yeah.
for, random little components to like, as you have your small businesses and whatnot. Um, so no, I think it's really interesting. I'd be curious. It'd be great for you to maybe explain like listeners and stuff too. And I wouldn't mind hearing your breakdown of it. Like, what is X402 in a certain sense, and like what did that unlock in relation to like ASG, right? Because I know it's pretty a core concept to infrastructure, right?
I mean, I'm gonna butcher this down because I'm not the best one to get into the technical stuff. But X402 is a way to communicate, let's say, in a agentic native from. No, let's put it this way. It's a way that an agent can talk natively to a website, can communicate and in a, let's call it, programmatic way. So if you are providing something, a service or selling something, technically speaking, with X402, what we're doing is making this in a way that an agent can come and understand the communication with that website and either program it or being able to interact with in a native way. This actually comes from an old protocol that is actually not, it wasn't meant for AI. This is something like this is an old protocol for something else, and now it's like but you know what? It's the same that AI uses, so it's kind of like a perfect fit.
Hmm.
But this is, I mean, what this means for us, let's say in the industry or in the market, is that crypto or blockchain finally it can become what it seems that is best for, as the economic tool or the financial tool for agents or for the agentic economy. Why? Because every time that we talk about crypto or Web3, it's like, yeah, this can be programmatic. It's perfect because, everything is digital. So you have a lot of decimals. For us humans in the day to day, that doesn't impact that much. But when you are talking about bots and about volume and about thousands of requests in a very short period of time, it totally makes sense that you could actually get a financial ecosystem or a financial tool that can work in that way. And I think this is what everybody's trying to seize right now. Okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
bring agents to our chains and actually do something useful with it. Right now, because bear market or because new trendy things are going on, I think there's a community discussion or an industry discussion in crypto about like, well, everything feels a little bit like down, everybody's not excited, are we dying or what? And I think it's because we seriously saw how a lot of people, and me included, start to focus on, wow, AI. But that doesn't necessarily mean changing one thing for another, right? Again, I saw AI, I got super excited, but the first tools that I think or that I can connect with are Web3 based, of course. If I'm gonna give my agent a tool to make payments, am I going to think about a bank or I don't know, a traditional financial service? No, I'm gonna use a crypto wallet. I'm gonna use layer twos. I'm gonna use cheap gas fees. And the interesting thing is a lot of the big players of the community of the industry, like Base and Solana and a lot of blockchains are understanding this and actually building programs to onboard that new wave of talent or users or new projects and ideas. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very early. I don't think that we still have been able to explode that as we would like to, but this is the base for it.
Yeah, and I think like the utopia vision per se when it comes back to community is, can we not get our AI agent employees doing all our work for us so that we get to spend more time having, good time together, having experiences and being more human, you know? Does it enable us to be able to get to that future and to be able to do that? Which I think is fascinating to think through then in a certain sense, when you're thinking about your marketing and who you target and how you set it up for a company like this, like you almost have to try and get these early innovators on board who are potentially going to be the ones to prove out the use case of, oh, I maybe the ones even to build the actual apps, but I use the actual app or something on the infrastructure layer and wow, like look how much time it's saving me. It's like now I've got an extra hour on my hands for every week. I've got an extra 2 hours, 3 hours, and soon people have multi systems with it, and they're like, truly a component of maybe like the Tim Ferriss 4 hour work week in another sort of way, and they get to
Yeah.
actually go out to the beach with their friends while their agents are all working and this type of thing, right? And I think that's
And
also where with other brands and other components of projects and whatnot, like the community layer and the loyalty layer is where you get a really strong moat to kind of that gets more valuable because people actually are connected to them and that's the reason why they choose and work with them, right? um,
yeah,
but yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we always going to have, and now even more than ever, I think the differentiators for products, companies, it's going to be maybe that feeling aspect or that how to call it, that service or that human part, like how this product or company makes me feel, how they treat me. That's going to be even more important, I think,
Hmm.
in a space that everything's going to be polluted with AI slop and all that kind of things. We going to be, I don't know, in a very weird position where we're going to be used to it to see fake things, and it's going to be our capacity to identify what is fake and what not, what is going to make us choose one thing over another.
Mm. No, yeah, and this is a great segue. So I'd love to share my screen with I always try and do research and pull up some sort of new, or in this case, very old elements of frameworks or principles when it comes to community building. And this one is actually there's two of them, so it's a two for one in a way. But someone else put out another piece of work that kind of built on it. So I'm going to share my screen and throw it up here. So it's called the gathering effect overall. And this guy, Emile Durkheim, wrote a book, The Elementary Forms of Religious Life, in 1912. And he was studying communal ceremonies and was noticing the same engine under every enduring group. And what he called it was this collective effervescence, which, by the way, I love that word now. I'm like, effervescence, it's such a strong word. And so I added in here a little definition. What is collective effervescence? It's the electric shared energy of a group doing the same thing at the same moment. Durkheim's name for the instant a crowd starts to feel like one thing, right? At some of these components of
That's
what
a
he was studying.
great concept.
Right? So,
Very
yeah.
good.
So what it breaks down to is like six pillars that fall under collective effervescence. Comes to assembly, the people together at the same time. A shared focus, everyone's locked in on the same thing, whether it's a fire, old days, whether it's a speaker, a countdown, some sort of aspect that everyone's focusing on. There's a synchrony, so everyone's acting in unison. There's emotional contagion, so elements of feelings that spread between people. And then there's like sacred versus profane, and then there's totems, like actual symbols and stuff like that. So these are like, there's much more to this than his six pillars. And he had this little bit of a formula with gathering, focus, sync, and effervescence. And then someone else picked up this work named Randall Collins, and he wrote about ritual chains. And he broke it down to four core ingredients and then four core outcomes that are a production of this collective effervescence. And the aspect of the ingredients was just co-presence, people being together, as mentioned, but then a clear also barrier to outsiders, like a moment like who's in and who isn't, right? And that's almost like the paradoxical component of, to be inclusive, you often have to be exclusive to kind of have like a
Yeah.
barrier, right? In a certain sense of how you focus on people. And mutual focus, attention all shared on the one thing as mentioned, and that shared mood. And then that creates a result of group solidarity where people are, instead of saying I, they're saying we, like
Mm,
we did this thing. It's a shared kind of ground. There's that emotional energy then that people carry away. There might be sacred symbols, words, memes, inside jokes, these types of things, and group standards themselves, right? And the more you can chain these types of events that pull together these ingredients to result in these outcomes, and kind of continually do that, have a ritual. You collect that energy, collective effervescence, and then you kind of return to your normal day life, and then you have the ritual, and then you have more energy, and that creates more belonging and connection, right? So that's like a little bit of a TLDR of some of this kind of older community psychology concepts that I picked up. If you want to go deeper, you can definitely check out Interaction Ritual Chains in 2000, written in 2004 by Randall Collins. And if you want to go real old, you can find some of the Emile Durkheim's Elementary Forms of Religious Life in 1912. So very human aspect here, right? And I was thinking through picking these different, frameworks. And I think about how, like, well, what does that mean when agents don't really gather? They never gather. And then you mentioned Mopebook. And I thought when I saw this too, I was like, oh, well, Mopebook, they're kind of gathering on Mopebook, right? Like, what
yeah.
does that mean? But do they have a reason, or how does that like really, what does that really, mean in its own way? And I think
Mm,
if you have a human, based aspect to your community, to your brand, to your product, to your project, like for it to be really live is one of like the last and one of the best unfakeable community signals. I have a great mentor actually who told me the number one for him like sign of a successful community is when they self-organize. And there was like a conference event, and I remember some of the community there were all also attending the conference, and they organized their own dinner without him or any of the other organization of the project at all. They like personally reached out to their people and got like a dinner together, right? Which is a really cool sign of a very healthy, strong community when you have that
yeah.
self-organization aspect. And then I basically took the writings from these books and I built a little bit of an AI skill, which you can download so you can copy this. And all it does is it interviews you and helps diagnose, you and what's going on in your community on the ingredients and on the totems and maybe where your weakest link is with some suggestions on how to optimize. So definitely share this if you want to try it out. But would love to hear as I, rambled through this explanation of these older principles. What were some of like the things that bubbled to the top of your brain? Any ideas, any sort of things that you thought, ooh, that's kind of cool. I'm curious.
I love it. To be honest, I love it because you did a great work here, putting it, organizing in a very nice way. Like I really love what you just did, because this is a lot of things that I do, or I exercise, in the different projects that I'm involved with. For example, exactly what you see there. The co-presence, the mutual focus, but these things that you were putting on top, the sacred symbols, the totems, having these rituals and these symbols and these things that start to create that identity of we and not just an I, and exactly what you said, to make it feel it a little bit we need to also define who's them, who is
Mm,
outside of this. So these are a lot of
mm-hmm,
things that we do maybe unconsciously, but when you
mm-hmm.
start to practice it in like this, like a framework,
Yeah.
you will see that you can gain so much, and much quicker, from, let's say, not only a community standpoint but a team standpoint. um, I have worked with a lot of entrepreneurs in their pre-seed or seed phases of their projects, and at the very beginning of any project, any company, before you start to see any kind of financial success or revenue, it's about you working with other people towards one idea. And yeah, if everything's going good, it's probably going to be easy. But if it's actually challenging and hard, you will really need to think on that, on how to create that effervescence, that
Yes.
that idea of us fighting the world together. It's not something that we should take for granted. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that in many startups. The real differentiator of success is that everybody felt part of it, and they have this kind of great internal culture. I'm not saying perfect, because there's no perfection. Everybody's going to fight. There's always going to be some sort of, I don't know, ups and downs. But if you systematically approach this to how we need to convince all these people to be one team through these actions that you just showed, that I think that's a great framework. Man, this is a total recipe for success.
Man, I think like it's really interesting how you say this and hearing your feedback on it, how a lot of these elements we subconsciously or we you mentioned maybe you already are doing some aspects to this, but we found some really interesting conversations when we workshop with some clients or projects and we bring them on a call and we kind of walk them through these frameworks to think through it, and the ideation that then happens in the workshopping layer to it, and everyone kind of can walk away with like, whoa, we've got like this framework filled out and like it feels organized now. It's not just like stray thoughts, it's kind of put
Yeah,
together, right? And these types of things. So, yeah, no, if you definitely know any, even with X founders and other accelerators, I've been looking at maybe doing more of the GTC strategic talks for these projects and for these startups to kind of help
definitely.
them think through the frameworks and principles of kind of core community ethos and whatnot. But man, this has been such great fun conversation.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
uh,
very nice.
I would
I
love to
really
just ask
appreciate it.
finally. Yeah, man, of course. And I'd love to ask you like final kind of questions, thoughts, or comments to leave with everybody here. Like, what was maybe one insight or one final kind of comment or anything that you'd want to share with everyone listening?
Oh, now you put me on the spotlight. I mean, Questions I have a lot, but mainly it's a little bit of understanding what does it mean millions of new users of the internet that are not human. And
Mm,
this is a very broad question that everybody can take, to whatever niche you are, but this is really something that we need to think of. What does it mean that for product design, for marketing, for business models, for even capacities, for how you do the architecture of something? This is changing a lot of things, and at the same time it's pushing us to try to not overlook the human aspect, because it's becoming
mm,
a really differentiator. I've seen a lot lately in the past, let's say 2 years or so, how a lot of the events or ideas for gathering this community of tech entrepreneurs, it always revolves around a very, human idea or concept. Like every time that we do a conference or an event, and it's just a bunch of people without not really motivation to be there and just like passing by, that won't get anything. But then you do this, I don't know, retreats or accelerators or boot
yes.
camps, and then you establish something like what you just show us, this kind of framework to not say, hey, we need to be friends. No, 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 no. Here there's a way that we can actually build the trust and the relationships and the sense of community again.
Yeah,
uh,
totally. Sense of community.
but it cannot be just taken as, yeah, let's just vibe it. No, I think we are finally in the moment that these are um, tools that we need to take a little bit more seriously, or make more important part of what we do. So I really enjoy what you just showed us, for real.
Beautiful. No, I was really happy to share it and really enjoyed the conversation. You can also find me here with my socials and community as well. And yeah, we'll be on with another episode next week. And Alfredo, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you around. We'll catch up somewhere in real life, I'm sure. Again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. I have a really good time and wish you best success.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you later.